Congressman, you're a former Marine. Just give us an update on the state of the conflict and where you think things should be going.
Hegseth and Trump are losing this war that they started. They're absolutely losing it. And now they're digging themselves in deeper, making it much harder to get to a resolution. But let's just be clear. You go through every different objective they tried to achieve, like regime change. Well, they've got a more hardline regime. Oil. Well, the prices are up. Ballistic missiles. They gave Iran so much money they can buy their own ballistic missiles now. I mean, drones. They obviously still have a lot of capability. We were told their military was obliterated, and yet it's attacking all our allies and ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz right now. And most of all, Iran has never been able to project more power in the world than they are right now, today. I mean, they have the world economy by the balls of fire that are erupting from Gulf oil infrastructure all across
balls
the
of
region.
Fire, nice save.
Okay.
Turn the clock back. Iran is obviously not our friend or neighbor. What would you have done in Trump's position 5-6 months ago?
What really matters is what I would have done when Trump took power, because he actually had a deal that he was handed by Obama that might not have been perfect, but it kept constraints on Iran's nuclear program far greater than we have today. Constant electronic monitoring, intrusive inspections. Trump could have gotten up there and said, this is a terrible deal because it was made by Barack Obama, and you know I hate Barack Obama. But instead of tearing it up, let's build on it. And if he'd done that, he would have empowered the moderates in the Iranian regime. He would have actually been on the side of the Iranian people that he claims to support. He would have actually encouraged, created the environment for change from within, while all the same time saying, let's continue to get new deals, just like we did after Kennedy's first deal with the Soviets, more deals to restrict their nuclear program, keep it under wraps.
Or the trade equivalent, NAFTA. Jared Kushner negotiated USMCA, which was basically NAFTA 2.0, a nice improvement. And now what do we have? Trump tearing that one up, saying he doesn't even like that deal. Yeah. You've got a background with the State Department. We're learning that the funding crunch is already leading to the Pentagon limiting training and maintenance that help maintain readiness. How concerning is that?
Deeply concerning, because part of how Trump has been conducting this war is to go all in and making, big firework, fancy moments that he can say, oh, we did great today. And winning battles is not winning a war. That's not a victory. We have used Tomahawk missiles when they're using homemade drones effectively, right? Like that's the new asymmetrical warfare that's been coming out. We've seen that Ukraine beating a bigger power and staying alive. Iran now is the equivalent of Ukraine, right? Going up against a great world power, staying alive. Like that's their objective. This is not a regime that cares about whether or not they have a functioning economy or the people are doing well. Trump acts like that when it comes to the United States. And so now they're trying, on top of that, you have Hegseth, who has eliminated leadership, people who have served well and honorably, because he's decided that their identities are a mental issue. Like at a time when we don't have people signing up for service, he is reducing the force, demanding more money from the American people without ever giving us a case or acting Congress to approve of any of these plans.
Oh, but don't worry, he's giving the troops testosterone.
Okay, but so the New York
20-year-olds need testosterone.
Let's talk about the war, though. The New York Times has pointed out that Republicans are presented with this political worst case scenario before the midterms, right? So they either have to vote for a very unpopular war in which they have no meaningful oversight, or they sit here and just let Trump continue to take control. What do they do here?
I mean, I think what they do now is what they should have done in the first place, which is actually use their constitutionally authorized oversight that they should have been doing the entire time. I mean, the Republicans have been asleep at the wheel, and that's part of the reason why they're about to get fired in November.
Potentially.
Trust me, there's this environment, and we can talk about polling numbers and et cetera. You have a more motivated voter to check Donald Trump and to stop Republicans than you do to sit on the couch and let Republicans continue to let Donald Trump, wither away all American credibility. So I feel very confident about that. But what I would just say is this. Related to what's going on, here in Iran, I think that Republicans have long since given up on this idea of checking Donald Trump. It feels like what Republicans are more comfortable at is letting Donald Trump take all the heat as opposed to taking any accountability or any responsibility whatsoever for what's going on. And I don't think their voters are going to let them off the hook the way that they hope to be let off the hook.
Then put Republicans aside, Congressman. What do you do? How do you vote? How do you approach Iran at this point? Obviously, you're a sitting congressman. You have a background in the Marines. You'd like to defeat Republicans come the midterms, but you want to serve the American people today. What do you do? How do you approach Iran today?
Well, first of all, vote on principle and vote for the troops. Show that we are the party that will stand up for the troops and stop this war. You know,
what does that look like, then?
What it means is like voting for every single war power resolution that come. I'm fighting Democratic leadership literally right now to have a vote this week on another war powers resolution.
Right. And you've had a bunch.
Yes, and we should keep doing that. And we should put veterans out front who have the credibility to say, not only is Trump losing this war, but you can trust Democrats with national security. But I had this discussion privately with a member of Democratic leadership once. I said, we need to be, if the roles were reversed, we would be crucifying the Republicans, or Republicans would be crucifying us, rather, for losing this war. Why aren't we talking enough about how they're losing this war? And he said, well, I don't really have the credibility to say that. I know you do, Seth. But, well, then put more veterans out front. Get people who can lead on these issues. Get Democrats who will hold the...
So why won't leadership let you do it?
The establishment protects the establishment.
So what does that mean? Well, let me just say, the establishment protects the establishment, and the American voter is saying basta.
Yeah.
We're sick of it.
Exactly. It's why one of the first things I said in my Senate campaign was I'm not going to vote for Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, voted to send me for Iraq. I'm running against a senator, Ed Markey, who voted to send us to Iraq because he didn't have the courage to ask the tough questions. Well, a new generation of Democrats, including people who have actually worn the uniform in Congress today, need to show, no, we're going to ask the tough questions, we're going to hold this administration accountable, and we're going to let everybody in the world know that Trump not only should not have started this war, but he's losing it.
So what happens when you go to Jeffries and say, let's do another war powers resolution?
Well, I'm going to find out tonight. I mean, I'm going to continue bring this up. And I love Hakeem Jeffries, but we got to be more aggressive here.
So here's part of where Democrats get scared is that idea of we're going to look soft on national security, but you have $1 trillion national defense authorization coming up. Embedded in that is implicit approval for this war in Iran.
Yep.
Right. Vote against $1 trillion
100%
budget. Like this
100%.
is not rocket science, but they've talked themselves into this almost generation-long circle, as you said, coming out of Iraq war, the post-9/11 era, where if they don't vote for security, they're going to lose their seats. And it's a fundamental generational difference.
Ultimately, the institutions follow the people, right? So the Chuck Schumers and the Hakeem Jeffries are going to take their lead from the grassroots, from the people who are making the rain out there.
But ultimately, the big problem for Republicans is going to be what happened yesterday, which was gas back at $4 a gallon.